are studying these days the rise of the international organization in the historical perspective. As you remember, we have discussed a brief history of the international organizations, and now we have discussed the concern of Europe as well, I think. And today we are discussing the Red Cross movement, its establishment, and how does it work. So since the Enlightenment, some people opposed the idea that war should be fought with total ruthlessness. Now, International Committee of the Red Cross, basically it was formed to help the people who suffer during the war, the injured people, the displaced people, okay, the and dealing with the dead bodies, okay. So, since centuries, there have been proposals that there should be no wars, and if there are any wars, then there should be some limits. And some people oppose the idea that war should be fought with total ruthlessness. Generally, it is believed, generally it is said, everything is allowed in war. Everything is allowed in war. Generally, it is believed. So some people, conscientious people, philosophers, and people who cherish humanitarian values, they opposed this belief that everything is allowed, everything is permissible during the war. So they said there should be some limits. In the first place, there should be no war, but if there has to be a war, then there should be some limits, okay? So that there is less suffering. But only in the 1860s was a real effort made to act on these objections. This effort came with the creation of the Red Cross movement. So it was a serious effort to deal with the sufferings which happened during the war. Are you getting it? Huh? Are you getting? Do you understand what I'm saying? No? You don't understand? There should be some response. Okay, speak. Show hands. Are you getting it? Saud? Are you getting it? Do you understand what I'm saying? No? Then pay more attention. Pay more attention, okay? Slowly, gradually, you will start understanding. Okay? Be attentive. Pay more attention. Try to understand. And then you will get it. So this effort came with the creation of Red Cross movement. Henry Dunant, yes. So let's get back from my call. Henry Dunant, moved by the suffering he saw at the Battle of Solferino in 1859, took the lead. So this was the person, Henry Dunant, who thought to form an organization to decrease the suffering, to address the people to help the people who suffered during the war. In 1863, he gathered a committee of Swiss humanitarians. Swiss, you know Swiss? What is Swiss? Huh? Yes. What does Swiss mean? A national of Switzerland. A national of Switzerland, Swiss. So it is an adjective of Switzerland. In 1863, Henry Dunant gathered a committee of Swiss humanitarians. This group became the International Committee of the Red Cross. So Henry Dunant, an individual of a citizen of Switzerland, he formed the International Committee of Red Cross. The ICRC encouraged other countries to form national Red Cross societies. First, they formed a committee in Switzerland. Then they encouraged people in other countries to form branches of the ICRC. These groups gave relief to the wounded on battlefields. Do you know in Pakistan there is a International Committee of the Red Crescent, ICRC. ICRC, do you know? Okay, I tell you its Urdu name. Its Urdu name is Anjuman Halal Ahmar. Do you know this? Did you know Anjuman Halal Ahmar? There was a story in our Urdu book in primary and middle school on Anjuman Halal Ahmar. It has offices in Pakistan. I have seen its office in Islamabad. It is also a branch of ICRC. International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, it has branches all over the world. So in some of the Muslim countries, its name is not Red Cross, it is the Red Crescent. Red Crescent, Anjuman Halal Ahmar. So these groups gave relief to the wounded on battlefields. The ICRC also organized a diplomatic conference in 1864. Now you can see this side. My camera is not on your side. No, camera is not working on your side. I'm telling you. Now my front camera is working. My photo is there. My back camera is off. Okay, don't worry. Back camera is off. So you can feel easy. I just got a picture for the thumbnail. That's it. The ICRC also organized a diplomatic conference in 1864. This meeting produced the first Geneva Convention to improve the treatment of wounded soldiers. First Geneva Convention, it was, what was its purpose? To improve the treatment of wounded soldiers, who are injured soldiers in the war. More conventions were created after 1864. They reached a high point with the 4 Geneva Conventions of 1949. You know conventions? What does convention mean? Convention is like an agreement. That is invention. It is not invention, it is convention. Convention is like an agreement, it is a document which has some principles, international principles for, and when countries sign it, they abide by it, they act upon it, okay? And they are part of international law, in fact. International conventions, they are part of the international law. Repeat with me. They are part of the international law. So Geneva Conventions, several Geneva Conventions were passed in 1949. These covered the treatment of the wounded on land, wounded on sea, prisoners of war, civilians, and neutrals. So sometimes, neutrals are also wounded, injured during the war. So these conventions, they dealt with the soldiers who are wounded during the war. Similarly, the civilians who are wounded are the prisoners. Eh? Neutral who do not take part in fight. Neutral citizens which do not fight, non-combatant. Non-combatant. As an important point is the role of the ICRC, an international non-governmental organization. So this ICRC, it played an important role in in preparation of the Geneva Conventions. Okay? The ICRC helped draft the conventions. Drafting means writing, preparing. So when the conventions were being prepared, the International Committee of the Red Cross, it also helped in drafting the conventions. It also convinced governments and military leaders to accept the rules which are incorporated, which are included in those conventions. This committee asks the governments to accept the rules. This success came because the ICRC was very careful. ICRC was very careful. It respected the rights of states. States are very sensitive about their sovereignty, about their power. So if someone asks to give up some of their power, give up some of their sovereignty, they become very cautious. They may feel threatened. So generally they don't accept such proposals. So the committee of the ICRC was very careful in convincing the states to accept the international rules, to accept international law, which deals with the prisoners, the wounded in the war. Okay? So it respected the rights of the states. It always acted discreetly when states felt their rights were at risk. Discreetly, in a very moderate way, yes, in a very careful manner. It always acted discreetly when states felt their rights were at risk. Governments trusted the ICRC. Governments of different countries, they trusted it. They trusted the International Committee of the Red Cross. They even allowed it to give some protection and aid to political prisoners. Now, the Hague conferences. At the end of the century, the one event went further in limiting war and its conduct. In limiting war and limiting the conduct of war. This was the Hague Conference of 1899 and its follow-up in 1907. 1907. Hague Conference was held in 1899, then and again it was held in 1907. The idea came from Tsar Nicholas, who called for a disarmament conference. Tsar, what does Tsar mean? Yes, the monarchs, the kings of Russia. It was their title, Tsar, Tsar-e-Rus, Tsar. So one of them was Nicholas. The idea came from Tsar Nicholas, who called for a disarmament conference. Disarmament? What is disarmament?
Use the production of weapons, arms.
Yes, it is the opposite of armament. Armaments means weapons, to prepare weapons, okay? And disarmament, to reduce weapons. So the idea came from weapons and to reduce also the military number of soldiers. The idea came from Tsar Nicholas, who called for a disarmament conference. These meetings became the high point of international arbitration. Yes, Do you understand arbitration? Arbitration. Anybody?
Party involvement in the conflict.
Yes, very good. Third party, when the third party facilitates agreement, when the third party facilitates conflict resolution, it is called arbitration. What is it called? Arbitration. The meetings became the high point of international arbitration. They were the most attended conferences so far, most attended at the international level. It means there were many diplomats which attended the conferences. Delegates came from Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Their popularity showed how strongly people now felt about interdependence in world affairs. Interdependence. All of you understand interdependence?
Depend on each other.
Depending on each other. It is called interdependence. So, you know, the countries, all countries of the world, they depend on each other. It is called interdependence. So, this popularity showed how strongly people now felt about interdependence in world politics. The president of the first conference said, nations shared moral and material interests. Nations share moral interests and nations share material interests. He said no nation could remain fully isolated. Okay, so we were discussing the Geneva conferences. It is the slide number. Uh, yes, the president of the first conference, he said no nation could remain fully isolated. He called the world a single organism. He also said that when two nations, no, my screen is held, it's not working. Oh, yes. He also said that when two nations fight, others are also affected. Because of this, he believed there must be new systems for mediation, conciliation, or arbitration. Many delegates agreed with the ideas of interdependence, but they struggled to accept clear obligations for their states. Now, there is a problem. The leaders, the diplomats, the countries, the governments, they want to decrease, to reduce the suffering. They want to help the people who need their help. But when it comes to sign the agreements or to accept some restrictions on their power, they generally are not willing to do this. So this is one of the biggest reasons behind lack of cooperation among states, particularly on humanitarian issues. But they struggle to accept clear obligations for their states. The conferences mixed big idealistic statements with denials of binding promises. They denied. Generally, the delegates, the governments, they denied the acceptance of binding restrictions on their authority, binding promises. Because of this, the first conference achieved little. So there was no major success at the end of the first conference, which was held in 1899. 1899. It created a so-called permanent court of arbitration. Yes, but it achieved something. It was not a big success, big achievement, but it did achieve something. For example, it created a so-called permanent court of arbitration. It also allowed international commissions of inquiry for some disputes. The second conference revised earlier conventions. Second conference was held in 1907. 1907 follow-up conference. It revised earlier conventions. It added 10 new ones. It added 10 new conventions, mostly about the laws of war. But no real progress was made on disarmament. This was ironic. Ironic means interesting in a strange way. Okay? Its main purpose was disarmament. It achieved some other goals, but it achieved almost nothing on disarmament. So it is ironic. Since disarmament was the main reason for the conferences, some people say the Hague conferences strongly influenced the League of Nations. League of Nations, you know, when was it created?
1920.
After First World War. After the First World War, the League of Nations was established. So some people say the yeah, it's your class. Just 2 minutes. You can have your chair. You come in. Just 2 minutes. I am concluding. So some people say the Hague Conference has strongly influenced the League of Nations, but this is not fully true. At the Paris Peace Conference, which created the League, few wanted to use the Hague model. The American and British delegations argued the League should not be linked to past efforts. Still, some Hague ideas were kept. These included arbitration, mediation, and inquiry commissions to reduce conflicts. In a broader sense, the Hague conferences showed two things. First, international problems were growing and needed collective answers. Second, it was very hard to find solutions because states find their sovereignty. What is this photo on that? Yes, valued their sovereignty above everything. Because states valued their sovereignty above everything. So, with this, our this part, first part of chapter 1 comes to an end. In the next class, we will discuss the integration, the consolidation of intergovernmental organizations